Hey everybody, this is Ryan Robitaille again, doing part 3 of my 3-part Rabbit Remix overview. If you saw the other two, this will make a little bit more sense. But as always, if you think this is cool, please go to rabbitremix.com and sign up. It's where I'm posting all the information about this. When I release it, it'll be here first. Also on Twitter at Ryrobes. So up until now, we've talked about text remixing on its own. We've talked about some of the chat GPT models, super prompting and all that. That's in the last video. But since we're using OpenAI endpoints, another really cool thing they have is the image model, right? They have a DALL-E engine for creating images, editing images, getting image variations, and that's something that's actually a lot of fun to do with a text-based flow system like this. So let us start with some text to get started here. I will bring in a text box. I will paste some stuff in it. And this is just me making stuff up. This could come from chat models, come from anywhere. That's the cool thing about like a text remix system like this is that, we're getting text from other places. We're mixing it together in different ways and sending it to other endpoints and getting other artifacts. That's kind of how the whole, see the last video for some more of that. So here we have a little scene, a little, probably not the nicest, but frogs in a pot, and I added some detail just because that makes the images a bit more interesting. The scene goes in ambient light. They're oblivious to their fate. They eye the chef suspiciously. Whatever. Try not to be a creative writing thing here. So I'm going to add in this block called create image. So create image basically just takes any string and tries to make an image out of it. You can pick different sizes. I'm going to keep it small so it renders pretty quickly. Down here, as you know from my previous video, is if I wanted to edit the text. It's a quick and easy way to edit the text without having to be, quote unquote, in Canvas. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to drag out a block here just so I can see it in context so I know exactly what is being generated. This isn't needed. You could just drag it directly in, but for sake of demo, it's good to see how this is all being combined. So if I drag this into the prompt, it'll start its generation thing. It chooses how many to generate based on the dimensions here. So if I were to drag this out, it would say, or wide enough to do 2. And then if I click here to refresh it, it would generate 2. So we have frogs in a pot. Interesting. Okay, like I said, it's a little dark actually for the demo, but whatever works. Okay, we have our sentences. We have our images generated. If I refresh this, it'll generate new images and the old ones go away. If I wanted to keep it, let's say I like this for whatever reason, I were to drag this over here, it would create, this is my image I pulled out of this set, right? And if I refresh this, I still have this image, right? Because all the data for the image is stored in this block and no longer needs to reference this, but I still draw the line just to give it some like lineage, right? So, okay, that's kind of interesting. What else can we do here? Well, the DALL-E engine is really better if you put kind of keywords in it with my limited experiments. So let me drag in another text box, and I'm going to make a kind of a list here. So a list of keywords that make things a little more interesting. I'm going to drag this out as a list, just because, and I'm going to drag the list into this block, which should add that list. Okay, dramatic lighting, photorealistic, gritty, surreal. Okay, so we've definitely made the images get a bit more strange. The drop down is rendering because it's a list, but in this case it doesn't do anything because we're not pulling a value, right? Like if I were to select dramatic lighting and then pull it over here and use that somewhere, then I could maybe, dynamically change it. But for this case, I just want the whole list. So in the future, this will probably not render in this case. But anyways, all right, so we've added some stuff, and you can kind of see if I were to drag this to all, you would see it all concatenated together, right? So this is the actual text that's being processed by this call. So we'll get rid of that. So, okay, cool. We have some more images. I'm going to get rid of this one because now this one is a little more interesting. Let's make that bigger. I'm going to bring in another block. I'm going to bring in image variants, which basically just takes the input image and using whatever metadata it pulls from the image. I'm not quite sure how it works. Someone else can correct me. But if I add that to the variance, it'll basically say, okay, based on this image, give me some more versions of this. And again, I'm definitely speaking out of school in terms of how this is working, right? But that's the basic gist of it. It's like, okay, we got some different variations of this. It's not very, it's actually more disturbing than the original image, so go figure. But you know, a good example, those are variations. So now we're gonna say, okay, this is our image, but you know, I don't really know how I feel about the pot part. Let's make some changes to that. But changes based on this image, right? So I'm gonna drag in an edit image block. But an edit image block needs a mask. And by a mask, it's essentially an overlay that shows the areas of the block, shows the areas of the image that you want to modify and the ones that you want to keep the same. So let's also bring in a mask block right over here. Okay. For our mask block, we want to use this image. All right, let me just resize this so it fits. And now, let me zoom in a bit here. I'm going to go into this and I'm going to say, all right, this is kind of like a little like rudimentary painting tool. I'm going to paint the sections that I want to keep, right? So if I want to keep these frogs just chilling right here, but I want the rest of the image to, you know, have something else going on, I will say, okay, well, I've got my selection, and then I can go to the outputs here, image and mask. Well, the edit image needs an image. It needs a mask, which is this black part, and it also needs a prompt. Like, what am I going to do to this, right? So let's see. Let me add some more text here. We'll add another prompt to the image. We'll say, add the text in. I'm going to make this one a little more happy than the frog part, than the pot part, excuse me. Say, in a lush forest, other animals surround them, fireflies are in the air. All right, so we're going to drag that into the prompt. And now that all three have been satisfied, it should run the edit image. It's taking the mask, the image, and the prompt and generating a new image based on all that. Hey, so look, we went from in a pot, kind of looking ominous with some type of vegetable there, to some kind of bird bath in the forest. Like that's a little, you know, that's a little nicer. Let's get some more images. We'll do 3 this time. And what I love about this is that, you know, as I'm creating my ideas back and forth, you can kind of see I can keep the canvas. I can keep what I've done in the past. I could even drag in, you know, some annotation blocks to say, you know, this is where we added in the gritty or whatever. This is kind of like a history of my exploration here. All right, so we have some interesting stuff going on here. Cool. If I want to drag this out, I'd be like, that's nice. You know, we've done some cool work. I also have this meta here, which is last, which is basically a dynamic reference that just basically says whatever the last image is, pull that out. And that can be interesting for chaining some stuff together. In this case, it's this guy. What is also interesting about masking is I blocked out the frogs, so we only have the frogs, right? But if I went down here and I said, you know, swap, well, see now I've only got not frogs. And it may have run a little too early, so I may have to refresh this, but there we go. So now we flip the mask, and now it'll change just the frogs and leave everything else the same. So we should see a pot with different things inside it. Okay, so now we have basically the inverse of that, right? We have the pot and the frogs removed and like different various things being added, and you know, in AI weirdness, you can see the last one here modified that last one, but we still have our original, our original happy frogs in a bowl kind of thing going on. But yeah, kind of interesting. You know, I could then take this one, and then if we want to keep, you know, laddering this out, I could say, you know, well, give me some variants of this latest image. And we'll hide this. We'll hide the menu bar again, and we want to see variants of this. And then you can see, you know, we could keep laddering this out and back and forth, editing, tweaking, variant, edit, tweaking, and get some interesting results. And not to mention the fact if we had, a chat GPT box that basically said, generate a description for me, and then using that in another prompt. And you can kind of see, if you watch all 3 of these videos, if you have that much patience for me, which thank you very much, you can kind of see how all these things could be used together to possibly build some pretty cool flows, some interesting stuff. But yeah, the masking, variants, editing, prompting, cool. And I think that's all for this video. So yeah, stay tuned for more stuff. Please sign up at the website. Please sign up at the website. If you like this and are interested in this, like I said, it should be out this week. But yeah, that's the image endpoints, and I will talk to you all soon. Cheers.